The alarms went off and the nurses began to run desperately. I was scared, but I realized I was unconscious. The only thing I could hear was a voice speaking beside me. "Don't be afraid. Everything will be all right." The story you're about to hear is a true story. The names of the characters and places have been changed to protect the privacy of its authors. If you believe in miracles or have experienced one, leave your opinion in the comments and subscribe. That day began like any other at the military base. I woke up late, cursing under my breath while hurriedly putting on my uniform. "Shit, shit, shit," I muttered, knowing my supervisor, Sergeant Ramirez, would show no mercy. As I ran through the dormitory hallways, I felt a sudden dizziness. It's just stress, I thought, ignoring the sensation. But with each step, the world around me began to spin faster. Suddenly, my legs gave out. I fell to my room's floor with a thud, unable to move or cry for help. Darkness enveloped me, and I lost consciousness. I don't know how much time passed, but I woke to the sound of heavy knocking on the door. "Corporal Schuyler, open the door right now." Sergeant Ramirez's authoritative voice resonated through the wood. I wanted to respond, but my body wouldn't comply. I heard the jingling of keys and the click of the lock. "I swear if you're sleeping, you're going to—" Ramirez's voice cut off abruptly. "Oh my God, Schuyler." I felt her cold hands on my face, checking my vital signs. "I need help here. Now," she yelled into her radio. Within minutes, my room was filled with paramedics. They spoke quickly, using medical terms I didn't understand. I felt them lift me and place me on a stretcher. "Hang in there, kid," said one of the paramedics as they rushed me through the hallways. "We're going to take care of you." The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and flashing lights. When we arrived at the base hospital, I was met by a team of doctors and nurses. "Young male, 19 years old, found unconscious in his dormitory," one of the paramedics reported. "Vital signs stable, but unresponsive to stimuli." They connected me to various machines, drew blood samples, and began an endless series of tests. I could hear everything but couldn't move or speak. It was like being trapped in my own body. "I don't understand," said a doctor, frustrated. "His blood work is normal, no signs of trauma or illness. Why the hell is he unconscious?" "Drugs? Alcohol?" suggested a nurse. "Impossible," responded Sergeant Ramirez, who had arrived at the hospital. "I know this kid. He's a good soldier. He'd never touch that stuff." Hours passed, and I remained trapped in my own body, listening to the doctor's theories and concerns. No one could explain what was happening to me. Finally, a nurse approached my bed. "We're going to do one last test, honey," she said softly. "A chest x-ray. If we don't find anything, we'll have to send you home and wait for you to wake up on your own." I felt her adjust my four and leave the room. At that moment, something changed. The machine alarms began to sound frantically. "Code blue! Code blue in room 307, someone yelled in the hallway. My heart was beating erratically. I felt as if something was climbing up my arm, a burning sensation and pressure heading straight for my heart. Doctors and nurses came running into the room. Their voices mixed in a chaos of orders and questions. "He's going into cardiac arrest." "What the hell happened?" "Prepare the defibrillator." Amid the chaos, I heard a calm voice to my left. "Everything's going to be okay," the voice said. "The air moving up your arm will hurt, but it will pass." I wanted to turn my head to see who was speaking, but I couldn't move. The pain in my arm intensified, and I felt as if my body was being torn apart. Then, in an instant of clarity, I managed to open my eyes. I looked to my left, expecting to see the person who was speaking to me, but there was no one there. Instead, I saw the cardiac monitor. The line was flat, and at that moment, I felt as if my consciousness separated from my body. I began to rise, leaving behind the chaos and pain. The last thing I heard before immersing myself in a bright light was the sound of the defibrillator charging and a doctor's voice shouting, "We're losing him! Charge to 300. And then, everything changed. Suddenly, everything became chaos. The machine alarms started going crazy, making a hellish noise. It was like being in the middle of an action movie, but I was the protagonist who was dying. My vision became blurry, as if someone had poured water in my eyes. Everything was moving from side to side, like being on a ship in the middle of a storm. I honestly felt like I was going insane. "Quick, we're losing him," shouted a nurse. "Bring the crash cart," ordered a doctor. I could hear their voices, but they sounded distant, as if they were on the other side of a tunnel. I wanted to tell them I was okay, that I could hear them, but my body wouldn't respond. I was trapped in my own body, man. It was the most horrible feeling. In the middle of all that chaos, I heard a very calm voice to my left. It was strange because with all the noise, I shouldn't have been able to hear it so clearly. "Everything's going to be fine," said the voice. "Air is going to enter your arm. It's going to hurt like hell, but don't worry, everything will be okay." I wanted to turn to see who was talking to me, but I couldn't move a single muscle. I felt like a statue, just watching everyone running around me. Suddenly, it felt like someone had stuck a red-hot iron in my arm. The pain was so intense that if I could have, I would have screamed until I had no voice left. It was like a giant silver bullet was moving up my vein, burning everything in its path. Holy shit. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't even do that. My right leg moved on its own, as if I was having a seizure. I saw a nurse trying to keep it still. "He's convulsing," someone shouted. But the voice to my left was still there, calm as if nothing was happening. "Take a deep breath," it told me. "It's almost over." It was insane. On one hand, I felt like I was dying. The pain was unbearable. The doctors were panicking, and I couldn't do anything. But on the other hand, that voice made me feel like everything would be okay. It was like having one foot in hell and the other in heaven. After what seemed like an eternity, I gathered all my strength to turn and see who was talking to me. It was like trying to move a mountain with my eyes, but I managed it. And man, what I saw left me frozen. There was no one there. The left side of my bed was empty. But that wasn't the worst part. What made me feel like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water on me was what I saw on the monitor. A straight line, flat as a pancake. No way, I thought. I'm dead. At that moment, it felt like someone had pulled a zipper and taken me out of my body. Suddenly, I felt no pain. I felt nothing, actually. It was like I had taken off a very heavy jacket and now I was floating. I started to rise, seeing everything from above. I saw the doctors working on my body, giving it electric shocks, trying to revive me. But I wasn't there anymore. Again, the doctor was shouting, "Charge to 360. I watched as my body arched with each shock, but I felt at peace. It was the most incredible sensation I've ever had in my life. As if all problems, all fears, all sadness had suddenly vanished. I felt an immense love surrounding me. It wasn't like the love you feel for your girlfriend or your family. It was something bigger, purer, as if the entire universe was embracing me. My body, or whatever I was at that moment, started to glow. It was as if I had a flashlight inside, but instead of light, what came out was pure love and happiness. Go for it, I thought. If this is what dying is like, then how awesome. I kept rising, moving further away from my body and the chaos of the hospital. I couldn't hear the alarms or the doctor's shouts anymore. Everything was peace and silence. As I rose, I saw a tunnel of light. I know it sounds really cliché, like from a cheap Hollywood movie, but that's how it was. It was the most beautiful light I've ever seen in my life. And the craziest thing is that it didn't hurt my eyes. It was bright, but soft at the same time. I felt that light calling me, not with words, but with a feeling. Like when you smell your favorite food and your stomach tells you, let's go there. Like that, but with my entire being. As I approached the light, I had a fleeting thought. What if I'm really dying? What's going to happen to my family, my friends? But as quickly as that thought came, it went. The peace I felt was stronger than any concern. And so, floating in that light, surrounded by love and peace, I prepared myself for whatever came next. I didn't know if I was going to see God, my dead relatives, or what, but I was ready. I was at peace. The last thing I thought before entering completely into the light was, man, what a crazy trip. And with that, I surrendered to whatever awaited me on the other side. Wow, what happened next was total insanity. Imagine you're floating in space, but instead of seeing stars and planets, Everything around you is pure light. That's how I felt. Suddenly, it felt like they'd removed a lead armor I didn't even know I was wearing. It was an incredible sensation of freedom, as if I'd been carrying something super heavy all my life and suddenly, boom, it was gone. Holy cow, I thought. Is this what being dead feels like? But no, man, this was much better than being dead. It was as if every cell in my body, or whatever I had at that moment, was throwing the most amazing party in the universe. I felt like I was melting, but in the best possible way. It was as if I was turning into pure energy. From my chest came a ray of light, like I was Iron Man, but instead of being a laser, it was pure love and happiness. Wow, I said to myself, this is really wild. I kept going up and up, not knowing where the hell I was going, but with a strange certainty that everything was perfectly fine. It was as if part of me had always known this would happen, like I was returning home after a very long journey. Suddenly, I arrived at a place that, man, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like a garden, but not like the ordinary gardens we have here on Earth. No, this was a garden that would make even Eden itself look like an empty lot in comparison. There were flowers and plants that definitely don't exist in our world. The colors were so intense they almost hurt my eyes, but in a really good way. It was as if each color had its own music, its own scent. I could see red, smell blue, and hear green. Really trippy, honestly. Awesome, I thought. If this is heaven, I've made it. I walked through that garden feeling like a kid in a candy store. Every step I took was a new experience. The ground beneath my feet, or whatever they were at that moment, felt alive. I could feel every grain of sand, every root, every drop of water in the soil. The plants seemed to move to the rhythm of music I couldn't hear, but somehow understood. It was as if the whole garden was a great symphony and I was part of it. Man, I told myself, this is better than any party I've ever been to. The craziest thing was that I didn't feel like a stranger in this place. It was as if I had always belonged there, as if my whole life on Earth had been just a dream and now I was finally waking up. As I walked, I realized I could feel everything around me in a really intense way. It wasn't just seeing or touching, it was as if I could merge with everything I encountered. I touched a flower and suddenly understood its entire history, from seed to that moment. It was such a deep connection it almost made me cry. Man, I thought, if my buddies from the base saw me right now, they'd think I'd gone soft. But honestly, at that moment, all that tough guy stuff and not showing emotions seemed really stupid. There I understood that none of that matters compared to the beauty and love I was feeling. I continued exploring that heavenly garden, increasingly amazed. There were trees that seemed made of pure light, flowers that changed color according to your emotions, and a sky that, well, saying it was blue would be like saying the ocean is a swimming pool. It was such a deep and alive blue that I felt I could swim in it. Suddenly, I saw something that left me stunned. In front of me was a kid about 3 or 4 years old, with curly blonde hair, running and laughing like there was no tomorrow. Behind him was a guy in a robe, trying to catch up. No way, I thought. What's up with these guys? I got closer to see what was going on, and I almost freaked out when I realized. The kid, it was me. It was me as a child, man. With my curly blonde hair, running and laughing like I always did before life got complicated. Holy cow, I said to myself, am I seeing my past or what? Seeing that kid, who was me but at the same time wasn't, made me feel such intense nostalgia. I remembered when I was little and didn't care about anything, when I laughed at any silly thing and didn't worry about the future or what others thought. Man, I thought, when did I become so bitter? It was as if suddenly I understood everything I'd lost growing up, becoming all serious and uptight with that military career stuff and the future and all that. I realized I'd forgotten how to be truly happy, how to enjoy every single moment as if it were the last. And there, in that heavenly garden, watching my young self running and laughing, I felt something inside me being released. It was as if all the worries, all the fears, all the nonsense that had been messing up my life had just vanished. Awesome. I told myself, if I get out of this, I'm going to live life like this kid, full on and without worries. And with that promise in mind, I kept observing the scene. ready for whatever came next in this crazy trip I was experiencing. Holy shit, man. Just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, boom, everything went to hell again. I was there, in this heavenly garden, totally zoned out, watching my younger self running around like crazy, when suddenly I felt this intense pull in my chest. It was like someone had tied a rope around my heart and was pulling with all their might. Oh, holy shit. I wanted to scream, but I had no voice. All that cool peace and love stuff went to hell in a second. The garden, the flowers, the crazy colors, everything started dissolving like wet paint. And there I was, completely screwed in the middle of all this chaos. I felt like I was falling, but not like when you fall out of bed. No, this was like being thrown from a damn plane without a parachute. The air was burning my skin, and I felt like I was going to break into 1,000 pieces. No way, no way, no way. That's all I could think while falling. And then, damn, it felt like someone had thrown a bucket of ice water on me. I opened my eyes suddenly and found myself back in the hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses who were looking at me like they'd seen a ghost. "He's back," someone shouted. "It's a miracle." I was more lost than an egg in a chicken coop. I had a tube in my throat that kept me from talking, and my whole body hurt like I'd been hit by a truck. "Take it easy, soldier," a doctor told me, putting his hand on my shoulder. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. We thought we'd lost you." 3 days? Really? For me, it had been like 5 minutes in that crazy garden. I wanted to tell them everything I'd seen, everything I'd felt, but that damn tube in my throat wouldn't even let me say peep. The following days were total chaos. They did a ton of tests on me, drew more blood than a vampire at a buffet, and I had to put up with visits from a bunch of doctors who wanted to know what was up with my near-death experience. "Did you see a light at the end of a tunnel?" they asked. "Did you encounter celestial beings? Did you feel infinite peace?" I just nodded or shook my head, because honestly, how the hell do you explain that you saw colors that don't exist and that you turned into pure energy? No way they believe me. But the craziest thing was when I could finally talk, and they told me what had happened. Turns out that while I was on my astral journey, my body went completely nuts. I had seizures, my heart stopped several times, and I even had a stroke. "It's a miracle you're alive," Sergeant Ramirez told me when she came to see me. "And even more so that you don't have permanent brain damage." I kept thinking about that word, miracle. Was everything I saw real? Or were they just hallucinations caused by my dying brain? Honestly, I had no fucking clue. What I did know was that I wasn't the same person anymore. That whole experience changed me big time. I didn't care so much anymore about being the perfect soldier or impressing others. Now I just wanted to live, man. Really live, like that kid I saw in the heavenly garden. Of course, not everything was peachy. The doctors told me my military career was over. With everything my body went through, I wasn't in any condition to stay in the army. "I'm sorry, Skylar," the colonel said when he came to give me the news. "You'll be honorably discharged, but your time in service is over." At another time, that news would have destroyed me. But after everything I'd been through, honestly, I couldn't give 3 shits. I had a second chance at life, man, and I wasn't going to waste it worrying about bullshit. When they finally discharged me from the hospital, I left with a new perspective on life. I didn't want to be the perfect soldier or the perfect son or any of that crap anymore. I just wanted to be me, with all my flaws and virtues. To hell with everything, I thought as I left the hospital. I'm going to live each day like it's my last, because honestly, you never know when you're going to take that trip with no return ticket. And so, with my legs still a bit shaky and a ton of unanswered questions, I launched into my new life. I had no idea what the hell I was going to do now that I wasn't in the military anymore, but I was sure of one thing. I was going to live every moment to the fullest, like that kid in the heavenly garden. Because at the end of the day, man, that's all that matters. Living, loving, and enjoying every damn second we have in this crazy world. Everything else is just bullshit. And who knows, maybe someday I'll see that heavenly garden again. But for now, I have a whole life ahead of me, and I'm going to live it to the fullest, without fear and without regrets. Because that's the most badass lesson this whole mess taught me. Life is a gift, man, and you have to live it as such. Right on, then. 3 months had passed since I left the hospital, and honestly, life had become total chaos. But not bad chaos, good chaos. The first month was rough. I had to move back in with my parents because, well, I had nothing. No job, no money, and a ton of medicines to take. Honestly, I thought I was going to go crazy. But there was my mom, as always, lending me a hand. Son, she told me one day while serving me a massive plate of chilaquiles, don't worry. Everything happens for a reason. And honestly, the old lady was right. Little by little, things started taking shape. First, I got some money from military insurance. It wasn't much, but at least I didn't feel like a freeloader at my parents' house anymore. Then, I started noticing I could do some weird stuff. Like I could feel people's vibes. You know what I mean? It was like I could read their emotions or something. At first, I thought I was going crazy, but then I realized it was something cool. One day, I was at the supermarket with my mom and suddenly felt a really bad vibe. I turned around and saw a guy who was about to rob the register. Without thinking, I approached him and said, "Brother, don't mess up. I know you're going through rough times, but this isn't the solution." The guy looked at me with a "what the hell" face, but then he started crying. Turned out he'd just lost his job and had nothing to feed his kids. Between my mom and me, we put together some groceries for him, and I even passed him the contact of a buddy who was looking for workers for his shop. After that, I started using this weird gift to help people. I'd go to the park and just sit listening to people. Many would approach me to talk, and I'd help them however I could. Sometimes it was just listening, other times giving advice, and sometimes even helping out with money if they were really struggling. But the craziest thing was when I started having really weird dreams. I'd dream about people I didn't know, but then I'd run into them on the street. Once I dreamed about a girl who was about to jump off a bridge. The next day, I went to that bridge and there she was, exactly like in my dream. I approached her and said, "Hey, I know you don't know me, but I had a dream about you. I know you're going through hell, but believe me, life is worth living." The girl looked at me like I was completely crazy, but something in my words reached her. We sat talking for hours and in the end, she decided to give life another chance. Since then, we became friends and she even introduced me to her sister, who's now my girlfriend. Over time, people in the neighborhood started knowing me as Skylar, the one with the gift. They'd come looking for me to ask for advice or to read their cards, even though I didn't know how to do it. I just told them what I felt. One day, a local reporter heard about my story and came to interview me. I told him everything, from my near-death experience to my new powers. I thought he'd think I was crazy, but the guy got super excited. "This is an awesome story," he told me. "How about we do a bigger report?" And that's how I ended up on TV, telling my story and helping people live. Suddenly, I became a sort of local celebrity. People would stop me on the street to ask for advice or blessings, though I told them I wasn't any saint, just a lucky guy. But the coolest thing was that I started giving talks at schools and community centers. I'd tell kids about my experience, about how life can change in a second and how important it is to live each day to the fullest. "Look, kids," I'd say, "I was a stuck-up soldier who thought I had everything under control, and in a second, everything went to hell. But thanks to that, I learned that life is an awesome gift and we have to make the most of it." Truth is, not everything was perfect. I still had bad days where my whole body hurt and I'd get these horrible migraines. Sometimes I missed my military life and wondered what would have happened if things were different. But then I'd remember that heavenly garden, that peace I felt, and it would pass. I knew I was where I needed to be, doing what I needed to do. One day, while giving one of my talks, I saw a kid in the last row who had a really sad look. I approached him afterward and asked what was wrong. The kid broke down crying and told me he wanted to kill himself because he felt his life had no meaning. I hugged him tight and said, "Brother, I understand you. I also thought my life was over. But look at me now. I'm here, giving it my all and trying to make a difference. And you can do it too." That night, I went to sleep feeling awesome. I knew I had saved a life, and that was worth more than any military medal. And that's how I live now, man. Each day is a new adventure. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's scary, but it's always exciting. Because now I know that life is a gift, and you have to live it to the fullest. As I tell everyone who comes looking for me, Truth is, brother, I don't know if I have powers or if I'm just crazy. But what I do know is that life is short and you've got to live it with courage. So give it your all, hug your loved ones, and don't leave for tomorrow the beer you can drink today. And that's how I live my new reality, friend. Pretty crazy, pretty intense, but pretty awesome. Because at the end of the day, that's what life is. One hell of an adventure that you've got to live to the fullest. Man, it's been 5 years since all that mess at the hospital and my near-death experience. Honestly, sometimes I still can't believe everything that's happened since then. Turns out that helping people and giving advice became my full-time job. You know, I told you I was on TV and all that stuff. Well, things got really wild after that. One day, I was chilling at my place watching soccer when I got a call from a number I didn't know. I answer and guess what? It was a producer from a really famous national TV show. "Hey, Skylar," the guy says, "we've heard about your story and how you help people. Want to come on our show?" I was like, holy crap, for real? But I told him, yeah, I was down for it. And that's how I ended up on national TV, telling my story and helping people live. Truth is, I was super nervous at first. Me, an ex-military slob, talking in front of millions of people. But as soon as I started talking, I forgot all about the nerves. The show was a massive hit. Suddenly, offers started pouring in from everywhere. Did I want to write a book? Did I want to do a podcast? Did I want to give talks all over the country? It was total madness. But the coolest thing of all was when they invited me to give a talk at the military base where it all started. There I was, standing in front of a bunch of soldiers, including my old commander, Sergeant Ramirez. "Look, guys," I told them, "I was like you. I thought being tough meant being hard, not showing emotions, always being on guard. But honestly, that's all bullshit. Real strength is in being vulnerable, in connecting with others, in living each day like it's your last." I saw some of the toughest soldiers secretly wiping away tears. Even Sergeant Ramirez, who was always so hard on me, came up to me at the end and gave me a hug. "I'm proud of you, Skylar," she said. "You've found your true mission, but it hasn't all been smooth sailing, man. With all this new fame and money came a ton of problems. Suddenly, I had a bunch of friends who just wanted to take advantage of my fame. Even cousins I didn't know existed came crawling out of the woodwork asking for money. And then there was all the press stuff. Some praised me like I was the new messiah. Others called me a charlatan and a fraud. There were days when I wanted to tell everyone to go to hell and go back to my quiet life. But then I'd remember that heavenly garden, that peace I felt, and it would pass. I knew I had a mission to fulfill, even if it was a pain in the ass sometimes. The craziest thing was when I started having those dreams again. But this time they were different. I dreamed of catastrophes, of people suffering. At first, I thought it was from watching too much news, but then I realized they were premonitions. One night I dreamed of a terrible earthquake that was going to hit Mexico City. I woke up all sweaty with my heart racing. Without thinking twice, I grabbed the phone and started making calls. Nobody believed me at first. "Skylar's lost his marbles," they said. But I insisted so much that finally, the authorities decided to do a drill just in case. And holy shit, man. 2 days later, the earthquake hit exactly as I had dreamed it. Thanks to the drill, a lot of lives were saved. Suddenly, I wasn't just Skylar, the advice guy anymore, but Skylar, the future predictor. With all this chaos, my life became total madness. I traveled all over the country giving talks, helping people, and sometimes even lending a hand to the authorities when I had important premonitions. But the coolest thing is that I never lost myself. I was still the same old Skylar, just with a bigger mission now. I still went for beers with my neighborhood buddies, still ate my mom's chilaquiles on Sundays, and still tried to live each day to the fullest. One day, I was giving one of my talks when I saw a kid in the last row. The kid looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. When I finished speaking, the kid came up to me with tears in his eyes. "Mr. Skylar," he said, "you saved my life 5 years ago. I was the kid who wanted to commit suicide, remember? Damn, man. I almost broke down crying right there." The kid told me that after our talk, he decided to face life head-on. Now he was studying psychology and wanted to help other kids like him. In that moment, everything made sense. All the shit I'd been through, all the problems, all the fame. It was all worth it for moments like this. And that's how we get to today, friend. Here I am, 5 years after my near-death experience, living a life I never could have imagined. I have a foundation that helps people, a radio show where I give advice, and I'm even writing a book. But the best thing of all is that every day I wake up wanting to live, to help, to make a difference. I'm not the same Skylar who passed out at that military base 5 years ago. I'm a better version, cooler, more complete. And if you ask me if I'd go through all that mess again, I'd say yeah, without thinking twice. Because at the end of the day, man, life is one crazy journey. And what matters isn't the destination, but how you live it and who you help along the way. So there you have it, brother. If someday you're feeling like crap, remember Skylar. Remember that life can change in a second, and that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Even if sometimes that light is a train coming to run you over, the truth is there's always hope. And with that, friends, the circle closes. From tough military guy to spiritual guru, from nearly dead to more alive than ever. Life is one crazy ride, isn't it? But it's our crazy ride, and we've got to live it to the fullest.